just use this so that will help to sync. Okay, so Prashanna, thank you for having us here. Alright, so today we are here at Prashanna's space to find out more about your collection. Previously, we had like a crash course, alright, about photography. I'm trying to get to know more about photography, right? So you want to say hi again?
Hi everyone.
Okay, so Prashanna, I just want to check you. So how did you get into instant photography?
So I think like many of us millennials, we grew up with analog mediums. Personally, when I was growing up, I didn't really have much photos of my childhood.
Okay.
So I decided to take up photography as a hobby. Ironically, I find myself behind the lens now.
Okay.
So I still don't have much photos of myself.
Okay.
But the first few photos that I took were on instant mediums. So like Instax and Polaroid film. And that kind of started the whole ball rolling. And eventually, like as the years progressed, I started collecting cameras and film and all that as well. Yeah.
When you say collection, I thought maybe like a 10, 20, but I was not expecting all of these here, yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Would you introduce to us your very, very first camera?
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
So my very first camera is a Instax Mini.
Oh, this one I can still recognize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is quite an old camera. I think it was made in the mid 2000s. So that's roughly when I started the hobby. You can guess how old I am from that. Yeah, but this takes like small credit card size instant films. Currently, I think a lot of people like it because it's quite compact and everything like that. And it's actually quite user friendly and easy to use, like, you know? Yeah, so you can see it's quite dinged up.
Yeah.
Maybe later you can see it on a close up.
Scratches
Yeah, and the scratches, all this. So I used to take it around. I'm sure Ian would have maybe recognized this from my uni days. Yeah, so that's when I was using this actually. Yeah.
So this was the one that got you in the rabbit hole of photography.
Yeah, this is the one that poisoned me lah. And this started this endless madness. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so Prashanna, so we are here at only your very first half of this very first wall.
Yep,
okay?
that's right.
Yep, so we are seeing all of these Polaroids here. We see 2 dry box here. But there's one thing I find a bit mind-boggling. What is a fridge doing here?
Okay, so a lot of instant film has quite a short shelf life. So it's good to keep it all refrigerated because Singapore tends to be a bit hot. So sometimes the film chemicals, they dry out. Yeah, especially for instant film. Yep. So why don't we take a look? Okay, it's in a bit of a mess, so I apologize beforehand.
I was expecting beer or something inside, but nope.
Nope. It's actually just all film. I do have some like roll film here, but all of it is pretty much instant film or pack film that I'm just keeping refrigerated. The reason why I have so much is I just tend to buy in bulk just to save on shipping. I kind of ran out of space in here, so I'm using my food fridge for some film as well, and my wife isn't really pleased about it.
How do you get her? How do you convince her to do
I didn't really ask anything. I just slowly put it in. Yeah.
Do first, tell later.
Yeah. Hopefully she doesn't notice.
Hopefully she doesn't watch this episode. Yeah. Okay, so all of the cameras here, I think the only ones that I can really recognize would be the 4 up there. Yep. How about the rest? How do you categorize them?
So I would consider almost all of them, except maybe this one, vintage cameras. Okay. All of them probably are from 2000s and before that, you know. So if you look carefully, you will notice like some cameras are a bit recognizable. Your very first Instagram logo was actually a copy of this camera, or maybe inspired by this camera. So actually, if you go back and Google the old Instagram logo, you'll find this camera. Then I think they reinvented to this, and then something to like this. These are actually talking cameras.
Talking cameras?
Yeah, so they actually make a sound. Let's get an empty pack. You can pre-record as well, but they basically say out something just to make people smile, so that when you take the photo, they're basically in a
like
happy position.
It says something to get people to smile.
Yeah, so you have like different modes that you can select. Yeah, so it has these different sounds that it does. There's like a Japanese model, there's a European model, there's a United States model, I think.
Like, do they all speak like different languages?
Yeah, no, they all say different things.
Okay.
And you can also pre-record certain sounds inside.
Wow.
So if you want to record your own laughter to make other people laugh, you can do that as well.
Wow.
You know? Yeah. Then Polaroid also was used for like in industries. So like all these are actually construction cameras. So they were used on job sites to document like work being done. So if you notice like the newer ones, they're almost all black, but the older ones they have like yellow motifs and like instructions are written for foremen to follow. Yeah. So they know how to operate these cameras. They're actually quite foolproof, so I don't understand why there are instructions.
And these can I mean, they are quite
They're rugged.
durable.
Yeah, they're rugged. Correct. You can throw it around. It probably should last a few years.
Shall we
Easily.
try? No,
can.
there's okay, but there's one that I find quite intriguing. Oh, this one over here.
Okay, so this
What
one
is
is, it has an interesting story behind it. What happened is I suddenly saw this listed on eBay.
Yep.
And what the seller told me was that he didn't know what camera this was.
Yeah.
He only knows it's a Polaroid camera, so he doesn't really expect much of it. He just wanted to get rid of it, make some money. He offered me like, I think $40 US. So I was quite intrigued, so I just got it because I had never seen something like this. But if you look carefully, you'll see like there's a patent number. If you Google this, you actually go to the actual patent documents.
Okay.
On Facebook, there's actually like a Polaroid group that shoots Polaroid, does creative techniques. Some of them, they collect cameras. So I asked about this camera, and some people mentioned that in their 30 years of collecting Polaroid, they've never seen this camera. So as far as I know, there's probably just this camera for this variant. I know of someone who has a similar one, but it's a bit different.
Okay.
So at the most, there's two.
Okay.
And they're probably prototypes that eventually became those two cameras. That's my suspicion, if you ask me. Yeah.
Do you have any sense of how much would this be worth right now?
I guess it's a single one. It's probably priceless, but I honestly have no idea. It's definitely worth more than $40 US.
Okay. Most definitely, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So here I just have a very few cameras. Okay. This is a press camera. So usually back then in the I guess 70s or something, the press would use cameras similar to this. That's why it's a bit bulky. It has this huge flash built into it.
This was like when you're watching like the Captain America when it's the early days and the
Probably not this one, but yeah, something similar. I guess. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's those would be film cameras, but these are instant cameras. Yeah. Then actually, this is a big shot. So Andy Warhol used to use this to take portraits of a lot of people.
Okay.
Then I think he took a lot of famous people, like I think Muhammad Ali and back then lah. Yeah, but this I don't really use this camera because you can't find the film for this camera anymore. Yeah. Then the top cameras, they're just nicely colored, so I just arranged them there because they go in like a rainbow color.
Is this like the full set of this whole variant? Or?
Yeah, it is. So you'll notice that yellow only has so actually there's a non-autofocus model and an autofocus model with the Sonar built in.
Sonar?
Yeah, Sonar. So all these cameras, they use Sonar to autofocus. So it uses sound. So what it does is it sends an inaudible chirp out. Okay, like let's say I'm using this camera for instance. So when I press the button, okay, it will send an inaudible chirp out.
Okay.
It will hit you.
Okay.
And it will come back and hit the sensor.
Yeah.
And it will calculate how much time it took. Okay. And that time is converted into a distance. Yeah. And that will tell the lens how far to focus.
Cameras uses sound to calculate.
Yes.
Wow.
It's crazy actually if you think about it, because when you think about cameras, you think about light only. You don't really think about sound.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's amazing how the developers at Polaroid came up with this solution, just to autofocus. But if you think about it, submarines use that as well. That's how they locate things and all that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, how about these photos here?
Okay, so today I just went to MBS for lunch. Then I was there with my wife, so I brought this camera out. It's a SX70. So this is a special model. It's an executive model. So there's only like 10,000 of them in the world. Wow. They were given as, I guess, presents to the executives or those higher ups at Polaroid. So that's why there's so few of them. But these are the photos I took. So these frames are a bit special if you notice. They're actually round frames. Yeah. So Polaroid makes different types of frames. Sometimes the frame itself is a different color. Sometimes the color of the film is a bit different. Some film is like black and white. Some is like yellow and black. We call them duochrome. So yellow duochrome, blue duochrome and all that. And this camera is quite interesting because many people, they don't realize that it can actually fold. So I'm just gonna fold it into a very compact shape.
I would have thought this. If I didn't know this was a camera, I would have thought it's like some hard drive or something.
Or like a printer. Like those mobile printers for photos. Yeah. So it's quite amazing how compact this. And this camera was invented in the 1970s. Wow. So it's a lot older than us. Yeah. I hope.
But okay, so you were sharing with us, sharing with me as well, about the temperature.
Yes,
here.
yes.
Okay.
So actually, Polaroid film is very temperature sensitive. So when you take it outdoors in very hot environments, it will actually have this magenta shift. So if you look carefully at this photo, it has this slight magenta hue to it. And that is just a consequence of the chemistry. Because ultimately, this film develops through chemical means. So things like hot weather, cold weather, all this can affect it. When you take images that are in cold weather, sometimes they might not even develop well because the chemistry just cannot react. And sometimes they may turn up a bit darker
Okay.
and all that as well. Yeah.
So do you find challenges like shooting in the Singapore weather?
Yeah, so it's a bit hard to shoot in Singapore. So actually, Polaroid has a recommended temperature to shoot this film at.
Okay.
The maximum is 28 degrees Celsius. So that's actually like a cold, rainy day in Singapore.
Yeah, you only have like 1 or 2 months in Singapore.
You know, that's like that, right? Yeah.
yeah.
So sometimes what I do is that's partially why I refrigerate the film, and also why sometimes I actually carry an ice pack. Then I also have some Polaroid or photography books, but they're all just to look sophisticated, you know. Just kidding. Not
All
that.
good, yeah.
Yeah, they're just all picture books. Yeah.
So now we are at wall number 2. This time round, it looks a bit funky over here. We've got a lot of colors. Would you bring us through what you have here?
Okay, so all of these are mainly 600 spectra cameras, and I have some interesting cameras at the top. So the top is actually all dental cameras.
Wait. This is a camera as well.
Yeah.
This looks like some microscope or something, no?
So actually last time in medical or forensics, right?
Yeah.
Before digital photography, they would use instant photos to take sometimes photos of, let's say, abuse victims.
Okay.
Or if let's say there are certain lesions that you want to like document down, you use cameras like this. So if you look carefully, you'll notice like it has different macro functions. So you can decide how close up you want to be based on these pictures. So you just rotate this. And then it has like 2 twin flashes, so it makes sure it's illuminated properly. Yeah. So before digital cameras, this is how like the police or whoever would
Do
document
you have
things.
any record of like what they individually documented? Like
No. I don't have. Then these were like the older models. So the older models are a bit different. So the flash, it has a special diffuser that diffuses the flash down. And you have these devices where it has different lens magnifications. So you just put it in here, and then you just make sure everything is within this frame.
Okay.
And so you like, let's say if I want to take a photo of your teeth, for instance, I would just keep it as close as possible. And then just within this frame, everything is captured.
And these are for medical use.
Yeah, medical, dental, forensics, crime, I guess, and all that.
Okay.
Yeah. Then the rest of the cameras are actually 600 cameras. They're called 600 cameras because they all use Polaroid 600 film. So let's take a camera. So usually when you open the film door, it will tell you the film that is required.
Okay.
So all these are called 600 cameras because they all more or less require 600 cameras. Sorry, 600 film. There are some variants. If you look on the second row here, these are all quite modern actually. They were made by the New Polaroid Corporation. So actually, if you look at this one, for instance, it's actually inspired by Stranger Things. So that's why the Polaroid logo is like upside down. And if you look at the instructions, it will tell you that you can kill monsters with the flash.
Nice.
Funny things like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Then if you're a fan of Star Wars, then this is actually like a Mandalorian inspired camera. Yeah. But I guess those of our generation would recognize things such as probably the Spice Girls camera. Yeah, so the hard thing about finding this camera is finding a strap that's still intact.
Okay.
So this is more of a collector thing. Because these straps, they're made of some kind of rubber which just degrades. You know your SAF boots, right? The rubber degrades after like keeping it in storage for a while. Same thing with these cameras. So sometimes it's very hard to find things that are intact. I think another interesting camera you might see is this Tasmanian camera. So if you close it up, it forms this Tasmanian devil motif. Yeah. So it's this is one of the more unique ones because the exterior is a bit different. Mickey Mouse camera. So these are by Disney actually. Then Sanrio and Friends surprisingly released quite a few cameras as well.
Yeah.
So I have quite a few Hello Kitty or like Gudetama.
Yeah. And you're telling me about Barbie as well, right?
Yeah. So actually this is the modern Barbie camera. It was released in the last few years. It was created by a company called Retrospect.
Okay.
Yeah. Then this is actually the vintage Barbie camera. So actually I have one that's like mint. if you look here, it's still in its original packaging.
As in, there's a camera itself.
It's this camera.
Okay.
But it's like untouched. So it's like you know lah, like you know Pokemon cards, Great Pen, that kind of thing. Yeah, yeah. So this is more for like a display because it has some cosmetic issues. Yeah. I have some cameras that actually like like this one glows in the dark. Then it will actually, the camera actually glows. Yeah. So actually there are different parts of the camera that actually.
Is it
glow in
like
the dark.
like a practical use to?
There's no practical use. It's just
So out of all your cameras here, was there any one that was very tough for you to acquire?
I guess this is actually my third Spice Girls camera before I
third
got
one.
it. Yeah, the third one.
Okay.
Because every time I would buy one, it would be intact. When the seller sends it over, the strap will just break in shipping.
Okay.
So it got to a point where for the second seller, I told him, please wrap the strap well. But when he was wrapping it, it broke. So he gave me a refund.
Yep.
Then finally on the third one, I was quite lucky, you know? Yeah. Finding the camera is easy. It's just finding one in a good condition. Other than that, maybe like all these dental cameras, they're a bit harder to source actually. Because these were, I think, made in the 90s, 80s. So it's a bit harder to find these nowadays.
Very nice,
Yeah.
very nice.
So all these are actually plastic lens cameras. Therefore, you don't really have to keep them in a dry box lah. Yeah.
Okay, one last one to ask.
Yeah.
This looks quite different from the rest.
Okay, so this is quite an interesting camera.
Okay.
So the history of Polaroid is a bit interesting as well.
Yep.
Polaroid went bankrupt in 2008. So what happened
As in
is
Polaroid, as in the
the
company.
corporation.
Okay.
Yeah, Polaroid was a Goliath. You know, it's like what Apple is today. You know, it's one of the top 5 US companies. But eventually, it went bankrupt because it was destroyed by the digital revolution. It weren't fast enough to adapt. Everything was turning digital. And if you think about it, digital is just an extension of an instant image. You really see it immediately. Yeah. So by 2008, film sales were abysmal. They weren't selling much cameras. I think they had stopped producing cameras as well. And they were basically closing shop. So what happened is a group of artists and a guy called Florian Caps.
Okay.
He banded together with the last factory workers in the Netherlands and bought over the last factory. And when they bought over this factory, they couldn't call themselves Polaroid. They had to find a new name. So they called themselves the Impossible Group. So this camera is actually called the I1 because it's the Impossible One camera.
Okay.
Yeah. Eventually, this company, they did buy over part of the Polaroid name and then eventually the full rights to the name. So this was actually the first and last camera done by the Impossible Group. Yeah. So every other camera after that either had the Polaroid branding or Polaroid Originals branding.
Okay.
And it's quite interesting. This is actually very modern. It has Bluetooth functions. You can control this with your phone through an app as well.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's actually very modern. Actually, all these, most of them you can control through Bluetooth. If you want to do like double exposures or you want to take a photo of yourself and there's no one else to help you.
Right.
You know, yeah.
Okay, so you just shared a lot with us with all of your collection over here. We also know that like trying to maintain the cameras, if let's say you have to send them for maintenance, a little bit of a hassle here in Singapore.
Yeah, it is.
And then I mean the film is also a bit tough for you to expensive for you to purchase here.
Yeah.
So why instant photography?
I guess the first medium that I shot on was instant film, and like most photographers, probably like Ian as well. I eventually transitioned into digital. But I think the problem with digital, for me at least, was that there's this like inflation of photos. You take like a gazillion photos and maybe you look at it, one of them, and then after that you forget about it. So I kind of got like jaded shooting digital photos after a while. I did shoot digital for quite a while. So I decided to, in I think 2020, to restart photography but go back to like my roots. So I went back to instant film photography. I know it's a bit more cumbersome, but I think I like analog mediums in general. But the problem with analog mediums is it's very slow. If you shoot analog films like 35mm film or 120 format film, what happens is you need to send it to like a developer. They have to develop, then they'll scan it, and then they send it. I kind of want the instant gratification of seeing it, So it's a bit hypocritical because I don't like digital, but I like this. And I guess I'm a hedonist. I want to see the image straight away, I want to have that instant gratification, and I guess that's why I shoot instant film in general.
So it gives you like the in between.
Correct. It's like a middle ground lah. But I do shoot film as well. I guess it depends on my mood. Yeah. I like the whole process. I think you can ask the same question as to why people listen to vinyl. You know, people like to drive vintage cars. You know, or collect vintage watches. Yeah, so I guess it's maybe the process, maybe they enjoy the thing, the history and all that as well. You know?
Okay.
Yeah. Strange enough. So if you guys like this episode, please like and subscribe. If you have any comments, feel free to drop it down below. Join us in the maybe next episode and we will maybe go for a photo shoot.